All right, shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
It's the brothers from Great Millstone, Charlotte, coming back with another Lord willing edifying lesson to feed the elect of the nation of Israel. And before we get started with this lesson, we want to give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rachah HaKodash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And peace and salutation to the elect that sat here labored in all truth and sincerity. To you we say shalom.
Shalom.
All right, so pretty much in this lesson, we're going to go into a quote that I came across earlier today, and the quote goes by the saying of the truth has 144 sides, and I thought that was real spiritual because that's in the truth, because we know that Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, deals heavily with that 144 number, man. That's a very spiritual and angelic number, and the fact that that's a saying in the so-called metaphysical world, that's just further, amplification to let us know that Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai's words are in fact, faithful and true.
That's it.
Because his spirit is in everything. What people may, put off as, woo-woo, or, the heathen, have their certain things that they took from, our ancient customs, and they skewed their idolatry into it. Hey, Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai ultimately, reveals to us the truth from these different things if you have the Spirit of the Lord to be able to receive it. And if you want to add anything before we get started, you got it.
I mean, just like you said, right? It shows you the presence of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai in all existence, man.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's why, Esau is not going to be able to accomplish, his goals, man. Right? He's trying to take the Lord out of existence when he is very existence, man.
Yeah.
That's why he exists, man. He is.
That's right.
Hey,
the name Yahweh, like the brother just explained, that's truth in itself.
Mm-hmm.
All right? This devil will never be able to remove the Most High's presence from the earth, because Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai's spirit is in everything. Because like you said, his name, he exists. Yahweh, he exists. That's proof in itself that you'll never be able to remove his spirit out of remove his presence from the earth, man.
Mm-hmm.
You got that.
And this is oh, you want to read the thing first?
Sorry.
So this is the phrase 144 sides of truth of the AI overview. It often refers to a metaphorical, metaphysical concept, suggesting that truth is multifaceted, complex, and can be viewed from numerous perspectives.
Mm-hmm. And that's the spirit of the Lord, because when you get this in Job, matter of fact, to add to that, this is the book of Job 11:6. It says, and that he would show thee the secrets of wisdom, that they are double to that which is. Know therefore that Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai exacteth of thee less than thy iniquity deserveth. So the point being, it said that wisdom is double, because it's two sides to everything. Because you have the surface level, and then you have the deeper the deeper level of understanding that's revealed to you by the Spirit of the Lord. And the further expound on that, this is why you have something called the five senses. But really, it's actually seven when you go into the scriptures, because like I said, the five senses deal with the physical, all right, the flesh. But then you have this the sixth and the seventh, which goes into the spiritual. I'm trying to find that real quick. If you got something, you can go ahead, brother.
Okay, I'm going to finish the rest of this. It says, continuing on, the idea emphasizes that truth is not a single flat fact, but a complex, multifaceted concept that can be understood differently from various angles.
Mm-hmm.
And, brothers often go into how you can read the scriptures, but you read it one day and you glean different things from it, man.
That's right.
Right. Every time you read a precept, you can get new understanding, and the Lord can reveal different things unto you, just from that one verse, man. So like the priest was saying, the depth of the understanding of the scriptures, right, is it speaks on this perfectly, man. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm still trying to find that.
Okay. I'll get this psalm. This is Psalm Psalm 33:4. For the word of the Lord is right, and all his works are done in truth. Right? So all the works of the Lord is all creation, man. And that's done in the truth. Right? And we understand that, Yahweh Shai being the volume of the book, right? He is the word. Right? So Yahweh Shai and Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is in the midst of everything, man.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All truth is the Lord, man. Right? That's why I think it's Psalm 36. Let me see. Where it speaks about how all his works are righteous, man.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Let me see.
How's it go?
It pretty much says I can't remember how it goes exactly, but it says all the works of the Lord are righteous, going into the judgments as well. Let's see.
I can get this while you're looking.
Yeah.
This is Psalms 117 and 2. I'll start at 1 actually. It says, "Oh, praise the Lord, all you nations. Praise him, all ye people. For his merciful kindness is great toward us, and the truth of the Lord endureth forever. Praise ye the Lord." All right, just proving that the ways of the Lord are everlasting. Because when you see how the earth, it was created, and how it's sustaining itself. It's a self-sustaining organism. All right, and everything the Lord has put in the earth is a part of that self-sustaining system. That's why you have a thing called the ecosystem. All right, and within that ecosystem you have different worlds of different things that coexist with each other, even down to the human body. The human body is a amalgamation of different levels of things that coincide together to make your body run. All right, like your cells. All right, your cells are each living individuals broken down, piece by piece, man. All right, even so much so, like we was going into before we cut the camera on, in your brain, it says that it's 144 cells. I believe it was called in your thymus or something like that. But pretty much it was saying that these cells never die, and that's the house where wisdom rests in. All right, and that ultimately you could liken that unto your pineal gland, because that's the house in which your spirit rests. All right, and that is your connection to Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai. That's where you get the signals from the spirit to pretty much know how to move. So just using that as an example, the Lord, all right, his truth endure forever, because look how he has preserved his people even unto this time. Right. Because the world has tried their hardest, these different heathen have tried their hardest to wipe Israel from out the earth. Yeah. All right, like it says in Psalm the 2nd chapter. But through the mercy of the Lord, that in itself is proven to you that the Lord did not do away with his people, because the Israelites have a relationship with the earth that is pretty, I forgot the word, but they need each other. Right. The earth needs us. Beneficial. Yeah, mutual beneficial relationship, because the earth needs the Israelites to be in its most opportune form, and we need the earth to operate in our most opportune form. So that in itself shows you, because when it mentioned how that phrase, the truth has 144 sides, because it mentioned the metaphysical benefits of what that saying is, because it's meaning beyond the surface level. Right. Which is why, going back to what I was saying with the senses, all right, you have to understand the Lord in a even further sense than the people of this world, because once you have access back to the spirit, you're able to serve the Lord in an even better way than the people of this world, man.
Yep.
All right, so I was gonna get into GNT, but I'll just get into King James because this app bugging. But this is Sirach chapter 17, and I start at verse 1. It says, "The Lord created man of the earth and turned him into it again. He gave them few days in a short time, and power also over the things therein. He endued them with strength by themselves, and made them according to his image, and put fear of man upon all flesh, and gave him dominion over beasts and fowls." Now, mind you, this is speaking of the Israelites, not all nations. All right. It says, and we're going to give you the proof why this is speaking about Israel. It says, "They receive the use of the 5 operations of the Lord, and in the 6th place he imparted them understanding, and in the 7th speech, an interpreter of the cogitations thereof, counsel and a tongue, and eyes, ears, and a heart, and gave he them to understand. Withal, he filled them with knowledge and understanding, and showed them good and evil." All right. So it said that he gave man the 5 operations, which we touched on. You know, we did a whole series on that. All right. Sight, smell, touch, hearing, and sight, smell, hearing, feeling. Damn, what's the other one? Taste, yeah. You know. But then it says in the 6th he imparted them understanding, and 7th speech, and interpret all the cogitations of. Well, when you get this in the matter of fact, can you read that for me in the GNT? Sirach 17:5, because it should say that speech goes into wisdom. Because wisdom is what truly puts us, you know, on a higher plane than the rest of this world. Because we have a deeper relationship, a more intimate relationship with our power than what the rest of the heathen have access to.
Right. So Sirach 17 in verse 5, it says, "He gave them their tongues and their eyes, their ears, their minds, and their consciences.
Mm-hmm.
He filled them with the knowledge and understanding.
Mm-hmm.
He showed them the difference between good and evil."
Keep going.
Okay. It says, "He gave them his own insight to let them see the majesty of his creation."
All right, he gave us the insight to see the majesty of his creation, because not only do we understand the reason why the Lord has, you know, some of the things that we have been made privy to, and why the Lord has the things in the earth ran, but then he also gave us a deeper understanding to understand why things are said. Like, you got the law, statute, commandments. All right, from the surface level, you just understand, okay, the Lord gave us, you know, things like the dietary law to separate us from the heathen, because certain foods that these heathen eat aren't really food. They're not meant for human consumption. So you look at it on the carnal aspect of, all right, you're not supposed to eat this because it is bad for your health. But then when you go into spiritually, you understand the reason why you're not supposed to eat this, because not only will that give you parasites, but those parasites, which we understand now to be demons, will plague your spirit, which will prevent you from really being able to operate in the spirit in a full way. You know, because the different parasites go into different parts of your body and different organs and tissues and tendons, and they begin to possess you, which is what causes a lot of people to bug out. You know, lust after and crave certain things. Those are spirits controlling you, which is really parasites, man.
Yep.
You know.
Kind of a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It says, "He gave them his own insight to let them see the majesty of his creation.
Mm-hmm.
They will praise his holy name and proclaim the greatness of all he does.
Mm-hmm.
He made knowledge available to them and gave them the law as a source of life."
Right, and that's going into these scriptures. All right, that's why Yahweh Shem Yahushua told us to eat the whole roll, for it speaketh of me. You know, I come in the volume of the book. It speak of me. So when you eat the roll, you're really essentially eating Yahweh Shem Yahushua. You're consuming him, and you're learning of him. You're ultimately like becoming, you know, a mini Yahushua, man. All right, and so doing so opens up our understanding to a higher level than the people of this world. That's why we can develop the ability of discernment. You can read spirits. You can feel, the off vibrations from, the music or even people, That's going into the metaphysical, aspects of this world that the Lord is giving you opportunity to tap into. And then you start learning things about, like, the sound therapy that ultimately can heal your human biofield. It's really the ultimate way to raise your vibration is through prayer. Operating in the spirit. But then you have the other things such as, eating alkaline or electric foods, meditation, when it's rooted in the Lord, But like I said, praying, fasting, and keeping your mind on the spirit of the Lord, that's the ultimate, way to stay in a high vibration, in a high frequency, to where then you're even more closer to the Lord, man. Yeah. Because when you're carnal, you operate at a very base level of vibration, which is why, the things of this world, they're drawn to you, And Esau withdrew this information, so that's why a lot of people, they're so, into their flesh that they don't even understand these different things, man, So that's why niggas, they call it, it's a book I was telling a brother about, called Outwitting the Devil. And in that book, it goes into this thing called hypnotic rhythm, which is pretty much, the vibration of the earth. All right. And that's the thing that keeps people in these continual loops of nothingness. All right. You're just following the different trends of the world,
God. This is the one I was looking for here. Mm-hmm. It was just the next verse now. So Psalm 33:4, for the word of the Lord is right, and all his works are done in truth. He loveth righteousness and judgment. The earth is full of the goodness of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai. Right? So the earth is full of the spirit of the Lord, man. Right? This truth is ever, ever unfolding to us, man. Mm-hmm. Continuing on, it says, by the word of the Lord were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. Mm-hmm. Right? His breath is speaking, right? We see that through the word of the Lord coming out through the prophets, man.
Yep.
Right? But it's speaking every day when the wind blows, right? In your day-to-day walk, the things you see, right? This is all the spirit of the Lord in operation.
Yeah, because going back to the vibrations, mm-hmm. All right? The vibration of Israel being back in the earth, that is the vibration of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai being put back in the earth, all right? And that's why the nations are in great fear, because that they feel that godly vibration taking back control of the planet. Right. The Lord is resetting the standard back in the earth, which is his way, starting with his prophets, man. And you brothers and sisters that are doing what you have to do in the spirit to serve the Lord, that vibration is going out. So that's why every year around the time of the Passover, and the different high holy days, man, those prayers and curses that's going up, that's changing the world, man.
Yep. God. It says, verse 7, he gathereth the waters of the sea together as an heap. He layereth up the deep and the storehouses. Let all the earth fear the Lord, and let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him. Mm-hmm. Right? So this is where, where we're at right now, man. You see 144, right, in your day-to-day walk, mm-hmm. right? But with that understanding is that 144 isn't everything, man.
Yep.
Right? The truth, like it said, just going back to that excerpt, it said this refers 144 sides of truth refers to the metaphysical concept, suggesting that the truth is multifaceted, complex, and can be viewed from numerous perspectives, man. Mm-hmm. Right? So the truth can be viewed, it can be understood, right? It can be, accessed from all various facets and forms in your life, man.
Yeah, because just to give an example of that, when we go into the scriptures, we have the historical account, and then we have of how things are playing out again. Get Ecclesiastes, how things are reincarnated. Mm-hmm. Because that showing you how the truth is multifaceted, all right? Because the spirit of the Lord is bringing back, the same spirits to play out the same lots again for prophecy's sake, man. So that just further adding to what the brother just said. I think it's like 1 and 9, either 1 and 9 or 1 and 6.
Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and verse 9. The thing that hath been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun.
Right, so showing you the power of the words of the Lord, because we have, the instances in the scriptures to where when we read it, you read it from the historical standpoint, or matter of fact, let me say it like this. You read it and we're breaking it down, all right, of how it's playing out today. But then we, what's the word? Was it classify? What's the word? Pretty much where we give the historical context too. But then I forget the word. But you apply, all right, how it's going on now. But then you also give the historical account, so you get the whole meat off the roll, if you whole meat off the bone. Roughly paraphrasing. But I forgot the term. Clarify. It might be clarify, but I still don't think that's it. But whatever the case may be, that's what happens. All right? Because when you read the scriptures, you can't just read the scriptures like a novel. All right? This is a living book. So a lot of the stuff that you read in the Old Testament, you read, and people think that, okay, that's dealing with the history. No, a lot of that is happening right now. Dealing with the prophecy of Babylon the Great. People think that that's talking about Neo-Babylon or ancient Babylon. No, it's speaking about America, But see, the truth is so codified, you only the ones that have the Spirit of the Lord are able to extract that and make it, understandable to those that have the ears to hear, though, man. Right. And that's showing you the power of the Lord. That's 1 John 2 and 20. He has given us an unction, and we know all things. We know all things pertaining to prophecy, to salvation, So that's a spiritual power that's only been given unto, the elect, all right? And so, like, you have these people in the world, they'll mess with the stones. They'll mess with like the tuning forks, the sound bowls, the sage and incense and all that. And they'll get benefits from the left-hand side. But then, like I said, going back to that Job, it's it says wisdom is double, because you can use that on the right-hand side. That's our stuff anyways, man. Right. It's just these heathen and these damn witches and warlocks, they'll take those things and use it, not realizing that that's actually our stuff. And when you're using that and you're dedicating that to Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, that actually is a tool to help you, amplify your spiritual armor, man. So yeah, we can use sage. We can light the incense. You could, play the sound bowls or the tuning forks or whatever. But the whole intention behind it is that you're doing that to amplify your prayers to Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai. When these heathen do it, or these idolaters do it, they're doing it to their idols. We're doing it to the true power. So if they're getting power from to the left hand, which are these fake, these fake gods were really demons, how much more when we're getting the power from the Most High himself through his son, man. Right. We're getting it straight from the power source, man.
Hey, because all these things are bastardized versions of what they truly are, man.
Exactly.
And like you said, the more the way the Lord intended for them to be used is only available to those who know the Lord's intentions, man.
Right.
So if you apply these things in the name of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, right, then you have that access, man.
Yeah.
But that comes back to that, understanding the truth, man. Understanding what the purpose of these things is for, man.
That's right. That's right. Because you can apply or spiritually extrapolate, truth from these different outside books, man. We're not, telling brothers that's something you need to read, but it's good information once you have a foundation, because giving an example with the health, all right? Esau, has all given us just Western medicine, but then when you go out to, the East and you pick up things from, Ayurveda or the traditional Chinese medicine, it's things in there that show you that it's knowledge beyond what Esau has told us. That's why the scriptures say Esau is a physician of no value. And, he's a liar and a physician of no value, because he wants you to depend on his medicine. All right. But then when you go into like Eastern, medicine, they'll teach you, all right, the science of the body, which is, like you said, Ayurveda is just a bastardized version of, the human, the human body, science of it. And they just give you a bunch of, they call it the Vedic terms or whatever, but that's when you actually break down, the knowledge, taking out Elon's, woo-woo shit. It's actually good information. It teaches you how the body, the cells are, how importance of how the cells operate. They if they're breaking down too much, things at a fast rate, that's actually bad for the body. Or if you're building up too much of something in the body, it becomes an imbalance. So the scriptures talk, or the book, when you get into the understanding of how Ayurveda works, is understanding the body. Traditional Chinese medicine says similar things, but it's with Moab's lingo. All right. So when you apply, what you can take from that, that's actually our knowledge. Because I'm pretty sure those people that eat that the heathen got their stuff from was really Israelites, right. But just lost through the transition of time. They thought they was of their nation, so they claimed what they thought what is theirs. Just using that as an example. But the Spirit of the Lord is in all things, man. Because it's the full, the full spectrum of understanding life is getting the understanding back on everything, man, which we're going to have in the kingdom of heaven, man.
Okay, I got one for you.
And I got one more, and then we can end it.
So Deuteronomy 7, that's like 4 and verse 7. For what nation is there so great, who hath the Most High so nigh unto them, as the Lord our power is in all things that we call upon him for? Right? So the heathen know that the Israelites' connection to the Lord is the greatest connection on earth, man. Mm-hmm. Right? And with that comes greater understanding, man. Mm-hmm. Right? When you get Proverbs 1 and verse 6, it says to understand the proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. Right? This is the understanding of the depth of the word of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, man. Right? Only the men of the Lord, right, are going to have that access, man. Right? Only the elect are going to be able to have, like I said, 144 layers to the truth, man. Right. Because you're going to be able to look beneath the surface, right? You talked about understanding how things apply to the past, how they apply to the future, how they apply to currently, how they apply to yourself, how they can be, applied to other people's situations. That's the mind of a man of the Lord, is you're able to look at these things from all angles, man.
You set me up perfect. This is Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7 and verse 15. It says, Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai have granted me to speak as I would, and to conceive as is meet for the things that are given me, because it is he that leadeth unto wisdom and directeth the wise. For in his hand are both we and our words, all wisdom also and the knowledge of workmanship. For he hath given me certain knowledge of the things that are, namely to know how the world was made, and the operation of the elements, the beginning, ending, and the midst of the times, the alterations of the turning of the sun, and the change of seasons, the circuits of years, and the position of stars. And just kind of go into some of these examples, because like the brother was saying, this wisdom is multifaceted because it can apply to whatever avenue that you're thinking. Because like you was mentioning, all right, how things apply in the past, future, present, all right, how they apply to the earth, how they apply to the animals. And this is the thing King Solomon is talking about right now. We see that through the application of the wisdom of the scriptures. All things consist within each other. That's showing you the knowledge of the Lord is in everything, man. It says, the beginning, ending, and midst of the times, the alterations of the turning of the sun, the change of the seasons. Using that for example, it's a thing of saying how we're supposed to eat with the seasons. All right, certain foods come in the different seasons that we're supposed to eat that help us acclimate to the earth. Right. In summertime, you're supposed to eat, more water producing foods. In the wintertime, you want to eat warming foods. things like that. Okay, it says the circuit of years and the position of stars, the natures of living creatures and the furies of wild beasts. Because dealing with the circuit of years and the position of stars, it is, it is truth that relies in that, but we just don't have access to that anymore, because you have things such as the zodiac signs, right, which we have a zodiac sign symbol in our culture, but like I said, it was cut off to us right now. And the proof of that, because it says in the scripture that Issachar, all right, he had knowledge of the stars, man. All right, that's why when you go into things like the Mayan calendar, they knew how to read the stars, and pretty much that's how they was able to tell their years, off of the position of the sun and moon, But like I said, in the kingdom, we'll get that information back. It says the natures of living creatures and the furies of wild beasts, the violence of winds and the reasonings of men, the diversity of plants and the virtues of roots, man. Hey, man, that information is not even thought about over here, man. I remember the Elder Zahab said that years ago. Like, we've barely scratched the surface of how many, fruits and vegetables and herbs that is knowledge over here, man. We haven't even got probably even 5% of that knowledge, man. Understanding how the animals, how they coexist with the earth and how they benefit us. Like, give an example, like dogs are very, integral part. That's why men, they say dogs are men's best friend. Well, you go into the word dog, it goes back to Caleb or Caleb, And like I said, that the loyalty of a dog, how dogs are able, they're pretty much like a watchman. The Lord compares us to dogs, a watchdog, man. That's a very, a spiritual thing. But like I said, when you get wisdom, you understand, the intricacies of why the Lord created certain animals and what they, what benefit they are to the earth. Right. It says all such things are either secret or manifest, them I know. For wisdom, which is the worker of all things, taught me, for in her is an understanding the Holy One, one only. Read it again. For in her is an understanding spirit, holy, one only, manifold, subtle, lively, clear, undefiled, plain, not subject to hurt, loving the thing that is good, quick, which cannot be letted, ready to do good, kind to man, steadfast, sure, free from care, having all power, overseeing all things, and going through all understanding, pure and most subtle spirits. For wisdom is more moving than any motion. She passive and goeth through all things by reason of her pureness. For she is the breath of the power of the Most High, and a pure influence flowing from the glory of the Almighty. Therefore can no defiled thing fall into her. For she is the brightness of the everlasting light, the unspotted mirror of the power of the Most High, and the image of his goodness. So, like we said at the beginning of the lesson, there's no way that you heathen are going to be able to take the Most High's influence from the earth. All right? Because the Lord's influence is in nature itself, in his people. Shit, it's even in you damn devils, man. The Lord is, he's far out, man. That's why he said his thoughts are not our thoughts, man. So, like, you got it.
I was just going to say, the scriptures say, who has resisted his will, man?
Come on, man. Everything operates off of his will, showing you that the only people that's going off really is 2/3. Because everything is operating the way the Lord created it to. Even Esau is just niggas that want to fight against the programming, man. Which is why 2/3 got to go. So if you Jake out there that have this wisdom and are able to tap into the spirit, man, consider yourself blessed, because we have power already on this side, and the Lord's only going to amplify it, man.
Exactly.
You got anything else?
Yeah, I mean, just closing out, this truth can be applied to every facet of your life, man.
That's right.
Right, seen and unseen.
Yeah.
Everything that you can imagine connects to this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Right.
That's right.
And I just wanted to get this last one. Proverbs 23 and verse 12. It reads, "Apply thine heart unto instruction, and thy ears to the words of knowledge."
Ooh.
So this application, and it's a continual process, man. We're like brothers often say, we're all works in progress, right? So it's continually understanding that we're unfolding the layers, or the Lord rather is unfolding the layers of understanding to us, man.
That's right.
And till we reach that ultimate point where we get the new bodies, where we get the full understanding, man, where we get that complete total access.
Yeah, you just gave me two. So like, that's a spirit. First, this is Proverbs 3:5. This for you. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths."
Man, in all your ways acknowledge the Lord, man. Right? Because he's always there. Everything you do can be tapped back to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, man.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're moving in the correct way, the scriptures talk about your path, your steps, right? Mm-hmm. Your way, right? The journey that you're on, right? If you're moving in the way of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, it's gonna be prosperous, man. Right? Mm-hmm. And you have to tap into that spirit, man. That's why the Lord is putting us in positions where we have to be more and more connected to the spirit of the Lord, man.
That's right.
Because our mindset is going to lead us astray, right? Regardless of if your intentions are good or not, if it's not of the will of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, it's always going to pull you away, man.
That's right. God, I'm getting with this one. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 17. Now the Lord is that spirit, and where the spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. But we all, with open face, beholding as in a glass with the glory of the Lord, are changed into that same image from glory to glory, even as by the spirit of the Lord. Man. Yeah, because pretty much, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai is leveling us up, like you were saying, as he's unfolding the different levels of wisdom and understanding to us. We're understanding on an even deeper level of why this truth is the truth. Like the Lord says, man, his words were purified 7 times over. It roughly paraphrased, which means his words are perfect. Yeah. And as we are elevating this truth, it just cements in us even more on how the Lord's words are true. And this is why we have to hearken to the words of the Lord and seek him 10 times more, man, because you see us veering away from the Lord's instruction, the lean on the wisdom of these heathen, how far that's made us fall, man. Yeah. But like you said, the Lord, his wisdom isn't everything. And like I said, when you go into the different avenues of wisdom, it's always the Lord, hey, I'm right here. Right. Job 33:14, for the Most High speaketh once, yea, twice, yet man perceiveth not, man. He's everywhere. And if you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, you'll always acknowledge him, man, because his presence is in everything, man. That's why that quote, one more time, it said the truth. Read it, what was it? The truth has 144, what was it?
That's a lot. It says, the 144 sides of the truth.
Yeah, the truth has 144 sides, man. Mm-hmm. That means the Lord is the truth. Yeah. The Lord is truth, man. So this is why, hey, we're in a privileged situation, man. We have access to everything, So, hey, Lord willing, that lesson was edifying. We're going to close it out by giving all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachah HaKodash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And peace and salutation to the elect. Till next time, we say shalom.
Shalom.